Well, there's nothing better than a professionally laid Karndean floor. Perhaps the cost is out of your reach, or maybe you just want to try to do it yourself. This guide shows you how I do it. In this example, I'm using a simple horizontal pattern, and I've chosen to align the joins to reduce waste. No borders are used, as this would require a beveling tool, and they're expensive and more work, and I'm cheap and I'm lazy. Before we start, let me quickly run through the materials you're going to need. You can see them on the screen right now. Karndean pressure sensitive adhesive and Karndean Skim-coat. There probably are alternatives available in the market. I haven't tried them, can't speak to them, but I know that I can recommend these two with confidence. You're going to need some 6mm plywood. In this video I'm using 5.5, 6mm, not much of a difference as long as the floor's in good shape. You're going to need some screws, a screwdriver. Now, it can make the job so much easier if you use a decent screwdriver. The screwdriver you see on the screen right now I can thoroughly recommend. It is an impact screwdriver. It cuts through wood like a hot knife through butter. Very reliable and nothing slips. You can see more details on that if you click on the link. You're going to need a spreader for the Skim-coat, a straight edge for making cuts, a Stanley type knife or box cutter as they're called in the United States, an A2 trowel, and you can see a link to that if you want to get more details, and a garden roller. Now there are rollers specifically for laying Karndean, and they cost around about $700. I'm not kidding. This is a cheaper alternative, running around about £40 or $60 that you can see on your screen. I'm using Karndean's Van Gogh range. I picked this up dead cheap on eBay at 1/3 of the recommended retail price, and it's exactly the quantity I need for this room. If you're not too fussy about which colour and shade of Karndean you need, you can pick up some amazing clearance deals on eBay, and fitting it yourself gets that 5-star look for pennies. Make sure you acclimatise the Karndean at room temperature for at least 24 hours ahead of laying. Right, now get enough 6mm ply to cover the floor. In the UK, Wickes is the place to get it from, but if you find yourself buying plywood from a hardware store that also sells Christmas decorations and soft furnishings, then you're probably paying too much. These are 606mm by 1220mm, and I need 13 to cover this floor. The screws you use should not be longer than the combined thickness of the plywood and the floorboards underneath to avoid damaging underfloor cables and pipes. Try to use wood screws with an unthreaded upper shank. Drywall or plasterboard or sheetrock screws can be used at a push, but they are not ideal. Now the floor's down, it's time to mix enough Skim-coat to cover the plywood and apply evenly. Skim-coat covers gaps and raised screw heads to give a smooth surface. If you've laid the plywood floor properly and countersunk the screws as shown earlier, there should be no such imperfections, and a very thin coat will suffice. However, Skim-coat's other advantages are that it seals the plywood and bonds much better with the adhesive compared to untreated plywood. Don't skip this step. Can't stress how important it is to loose lay a run of Karndean before you actually glue it in place. You can carefully select a centered chalk line in the middle of the room and work outwards, or you can find the wall along which you want the tiles to run in parallel and start there. This is what I'm doing. Stagger the joins so you have a natural look to the planks. To cut Karndean, a straight edge and a Stanley knife or box cutter is all that's required, as you can see here. Make sure you use machine edge to machine edge where the tiles butt together in the middle of the floor. These are often beveled, but even if they're not beveled, it gives a much better finish machine edge to machine edge. The fresh cut you've made should be tucked away under the skirting or baseboard at the edges. If your base or skirting board is already in place, then get yourself an oscillating multi-tool. These can cut away a thin strip from the bottom of the baseboards and make the job of tucking the Karndean under the baseboard a lot easier and a much neater finish. Also useful around complicated door architraves. Pre-cut and loose lay no more than you can get down before the adhesive times out on you. Karndean advise this is 2 hours, but I wouldn't leave it much more than an hour, as conditions can vary. How far you can actually reach over the wet adhesive to lay the furthest tile is probably the biggest consideration. Here, as you can see, I'm laying 6 rows at a time. Bizarrely, step 4, laying the Karndean down on the adhesive, is actually the easiest of the steps, but it doesn't stop it being any more stressful because you realise at this point this is where the finish is determined. Spread the adhesive using an A2 trowel. You can see a link at the beginning of this video on where to get one of these from. This spreads the adhesive at the correct depth. Try and lay the tiles straight down rather than sliding them across the adhesive, as this will create a ridge of adhesive that you're going to have to wipe away. Ensure both mating edges are tight and with no gaps. Since we're using the contact adhesive, the final step in the process is to make sure there's sufficient pressure on the Karndean to ensure that it bonds with the floor. And here's the finished floor, which is ready to walk on in about 24 hours after you've finished laying the last tile. If you found the guide useful, or even if you didn't, I would appreciate you taking the time to click the thumbs up below.